On this episode, we are shifting our focus to the 2024 NFL Draft and looking at the AFC North with team previews and draft needs on the Fired Up NFL Draft podcast.
You're listening to the Fired Up Podcast Network. Let's get fired up.
And I'm your host, Brian Lamb from NFL Draft Lounge, joined as always by Sean Balzer. What's up, Sean?
What's up, Brian? Let's dig into 2024. Let's go. Or 2023, excuse me.
Yep, ready to do it. On the website, we've already shifted focus to the 2024 NFL Draft. Ready to talk about the 2023 NFL season and get the show on the road. First up, we're going to Baltimore with the Ravens. You want to break that one down for us?
Sure. I find it interesting you want to start with the Ravens, but we'll go there. For the Ravens, they're over/under listed at 9.5. Looking into basically what I did is I took what I had listed as pre-draft needs, assessed if they were able to address any of those. Obviously free agency's factored into that already. So what each individual team was able to address, and then assessing the quality of the offensive line and the defensive line as well, and then looking at their strength of schedule to see if we think they'll go over under and who ultimately will win this division. So for the Ravens, over under set over on DraftKings, and it looks like most sites have them at 9.5. Pre-draft, I had them needing corner, interior line, defensive line, more end, a little bit running back, a little bit wide receiver. I was leaning against wide receiver there in the first myself, but obviously Zay Flowers is an exciting guy to add. Post draft, I still have them needing corner, interior line, defensive end, running back. They're able to add Flowers. They got a little help on the edge with Tavion Robinson in the fourth. They addressed corner in the fifth with Kai Blue Kelly. I think we both like Voorhees, but obviously that's pretty much a redshirt season for him. So still going into the season, at least it appears that there's still a little bit of help needed at corner, interior line, defensive end, and running back. I gave them roughly a C here on the draft. Didn't really address the primary needs that I thought, but the offense has a chance to be pretty exciting. I mean, obviously with the addition with Odell, looks like Rashad Bateman's coming back strong. Obviously they still have Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely as their second tight end. Looked like he had a lot of juice last year. It'd be interesting to see him, see how he can improve this year. So just a lot of excitement around this pass catching core. Not only that, but they bring in Todd Monken, offensive coordinator, formerly of Georgia, to really accelerate the downfield passing game. So a lot to be excited about for Baltimore. Their offensive line, I think is top 5. Looking into Mike Clay of ESPN, he's got him ranked 4th with Ronnie Stanley, Ben Cleveland, Linderbaum, obviously last year's high draft pick, Kevin Zeitler, Morgan Moses. I mean, whether you agree with the fourth over whether you agree that they're 4th or not, they're certainly a top 5, top 10 line. D line, like I said, I wish they had addressed that more in the draft. That's more of a bottom 5, bottom 10 unit, and that could leave them vulnerable. But this offense certainly could be exciting. And as far as strength of schedule, I like to use a sharp football analysis. Strength of schedule, I think it factors in a little bit of everything. It's not just how the teams did last year or anything. It's more projection based off of over under win totals and such. So they've got the Ravens as the 12th hardest 21st schedule. So a lot to like about the offense. Certainly didn't address all the needs. Over under 9.5. What do you got?
Yeah, I think they can hit the over pretty easily. It's not a terribly tough schedule. I think if you look at their division, I don't know if they match up well with the Bengals, but I do think that they can win at least 3 games between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, right? You have some easy games against Houston, Indianapolis, Tennessee, uh, Arizona, the Rams, uh, Dolphins. Uh, I don't know if the Dolphins are necessarily an easy game, but I think that they can win that game.
It was a fun one last year.
Yeah. Seahawks, maybe the Lions. It's honestly, Sean, it's not a terribly tough schedule for them. I'm, so what's it at 9.5? I think that they can hit that over pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm with you on the over 9.5. I mean, I think that this is maybe a low key Super Bowl contender. They don't seem to be getting enough respect to me. I mean, maybe it was a bit of the offseason drama with Lamar. Everybody loves the Bengals, and obviously we'll get to them, and that they are certainly a significant obstacle. Not to mention, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, and I could keep going. But I do feel like the Ravens are a low key Super Bowl contender. I will go out on a limb here and go ahead and say that I think that they will win this division. I'll get into a little bit more of that when we get to the Bengals, but I will go ahead and stick my neck out here for the Ravens and what I think might be a pretty exciting passing offense.
Yeah, I think that's maybe a stretch. I really think it kind of really depends on what Monken can do coming in there and what that offense looks like. They don't have a lot of glaring holes, as you talked about. Obviously, running back's one of them. Defensive line, another one you mentioned. Even corner, you have Rocky Sin, Marlon Humphrey, Brandon Stevens. Do you want an upgrade there over Rocky Sin? Obviously, drafted Caillou Blue Kelly in the 5th round.
Right.
I don't think that gets it done. I think that that's probably going to be a position that they're going to have to look at in the 2024 NFL draft. Maybe even defensive line, maybe a pass rusher or something like that. But those are my team needs. I don't think that they have a lot of glaring holes. It's honestly it's a solid team. I don't know how well that they'll be able to compete with other teams in the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, if they underperform, if they disappoint, it's going to be on the backs of either the defensive line or another Lamar injury, which is always in play with his style of play. But with the big contract, with a great offensive line, I'll stick my neck out here and go ahead and pick the Ravens.
Yep. Moving on to the Bengals. Let's go ahead and break that one down.
So over under, I've got 11.5 for the Bengals. Pre-draft, I had them needing tight end, corner, safety, right tackle, running back, D line. Long list doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad team. Just plenty of things that they could address. They drafted corner DJ Turner in the 2nd round, safety Jordan Battle in the 3rd, Chase Brown in the 5th, running back. So that addressed several of the needs. They did not take any tight ends or any offensive line. So post draft, I've got them needing tight end, and instead of O-line, I just put Jonah Williams. They need Jonah Williams to settle into the right tackle role and own it and not be a problem or ultimately force himself out. If there is a trade there, then they're really vulnerable at the right tackle position. So I think they would have to address that. As far as rankings, again, using Mike Clay of ESPN, I've got them listed 20th on the O-line. That's with the addition of Orlando Brown. They're pretty solid in the middle with Ted Karras and Alex Kappa, and then obviously, hopefully, Jonah Williams. D-line, I might have them a little higher than Mike Clay. He's got them 13 with Sam Hubbard, Trey Hendrickson, and Miles Murphy. Got some, several other guys, Cameron Sample, Joseph Asai as well. Sharp Football Analysis has them as the 20th, 20th on the strength of schedule, meaning 13th hardest. So kind of right there with the Ravens. Is, it's not an especially difficult schedule, but certainly won't be easy. And 11.5, that's a healthy number. What do you got?
I'm gonna go under 11.5. 10, 11 is my number, somewhere in there. I don't know if they get over that. Um, Again, it's not a terrible, schedule. But you have the Chiefs, you have the Vikings, uh, obviously 2 games against the Ravens. You got the Bills, the 49ers. Um, I don't see them getting all of these wins uh, with the roster that they have. Going back to it, uh, obviously enough has been made about the wide receiver position with Higgins and Boyd. I think they're going to have to spend a pick there in 2024 on a wide receiver. You mentioned tight end. That's another glaring hole for them. As is, I think, cornerback. Obviously, you drafted DJ Turner in the 2nd round, but Chidobe Awuzie is in the final year of his contract. You have Mike Hilton in the nickel. I think you could use another cornerback, especially when you're talking about going up against the Bills and the Ravens and the Chiefs. You got to build a roster to compete against those teams. And maybe offensive line somewhere in there, maybe some depth. But I compared to the Ravens, I think they maybe have a few more holes, even though I think they're a better team overall.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, the good thing about doing this in May, June is we can go ahead and note what we think they need, and then, things will change. Guys will step up, guys will go down, guys we expected big things out of will fail, and that's the NFL. So this gives us ultimately it gives us a good thing to focus on as far as, future mock drafts and what to expect come the 2024 NFL draft. Obviously, picking the Ravens to win the division, I'm with you on the Bengals on the under. Can't say I'm confident on it. They could easily win 12, 13 games. It wouldn't shock me at all. I just think they're vulnerable. They're vulnerable on the O-line. Orlando Brown is not, to me, a top tier elite left tackle. He's certainly vulnerable to the speed rushes. Who knows what's going to happen with Jonah Williams? Obviously, you can say this about most teams, but Burrow were to go down, their quarterback were to go down, they'd be in a lot of trouble. So, just think they're a little vulnerable on the O-line. For me to feel confident about a team going far and winning what I think is a pretty good division. I mean, this division, this is a top 2 to 4 division at the worst. I mean, you got the AFC West with Chiefs, the NFC East with the Eagles, AFC East with Bills, and several other teams. So, I mean, those are the top 4. I think maybe this division deserves a little more respect, and we'll get into that more with the Steelers and Browns. But to win a division like this, I think you've got to have a really strong O-line and D-line, and I don't think that's currently the Bengals. Maybe Miles Murphy can add a little more juice this year, but I'm going to take under on 11.5. They get to 10 or 11, I still win that bet. I definitely still think they make the playoffs, pending something tragic happening. But yeah, I'll stick with the Ravens.
Yeah, what I think is interesting with the Bengals last year is they really took off after that bye week. Entering their bye, they were 5-4 overall. And then down that stretch, they only lost 1 game, and that was in the AFC Championship. So obviously they did really well after that bye week. And if you look at the 2023 schedule, after their bye, they have the 49ers, the Bills, Ravens, Steelers, Jags, Colts, Vikings, Steelers, Chiefs, and Browns. So it's not easy. It doesn't get any easier for them. But I think it'll be interesting to see what they do there.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on, we get the Cleveland Browns.
Again, I find your order interesting, but I'll go
On
based off.
alphabetical.
All right, all right. So Cleveland Browns, I'm seeing on DraftKings and most sites at least, they're over under set at 9.5. Pre-draft had them needing D line, wide receiver, linebacker, corner, safety, and running back. Obviously, they've got one of the best running backs in the NFL, Nick Chubb, but depth behind him is questionable. At least I've got some interesting guys behind him, but currently no Kareem Hunt. Post draft, I just kind of listed linebacker, corner, and safety. They were able to pick up Elijah Moore on a, I believe it was right before the draft, on a trade. The thing about the Browns is their O-line and D-line are elite. I mean, Mike Clay's got them second and third. I mean, I don't think it's debatable that they're at least top five. I mean, with elite players on both sides, obviously Myles Garrett. Their strength of schedule is right in the middle there at 16th. In what's not an easy division, obviously several of these games will be several of these divisional games will end up deciding whether or not they go over on the 9.5. But ultimately, we know this is all about Deshaun Watson, and if he plays like he played for the majority of those 6 games, then smash the under. But if he can play even 50-75% of what the guy we saw on the Texans a couple years back, then it's certainly a conversation. So over under 9.5. What you got?
I'm gonna go under.
Can't be
It's
confident.
a schedule. I mean, yeah, you got games against the Bengals, obviously 2 against the Bengals, 2 against the Steelers, 2 against the Ravens, 49ers, Seahawks, Broncos, Rams, Jets, Jaguars. So we don't know what that team's going to look like yet. With Deshaun Watson in a full season with a full training camp. But I'm going to take the under on that. I don't know if they get to 9.5. Well, obviously 10. I think that maybe 9 wins is their ceiling.
So I was too much of a chicken to pick the over under on this, but I found it on Caesars for over 8.5, and I'll take that. So it looks like pretty much everybody's got it at 9.5, but Caesars has it as 8.5, and I take the over on that, which means it's obviously I'm cheating a little bit, but that does mean I'm saying 9 wins. I mean, again, it's all on Deshaun Watson, but with an elite O line, an elite D line. Certainly some great pass catchers, and Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Njoku stepped up last year. We'll see what Elijah Moore can provide for them, and I think that was ultimately a good trade for them. So them winning 9 or 10 games is not a crazy thing at all. The only hesitation here is they're the Browns, right? Like anytime anybody gets high on the Browns, you get reminded that they're the Browns. But this is I can't look at this team and not say that this is an extremely talented team that could make the playoffs, could win 9-10 games. Just like I said, Deshaun Watson plays 75% of his old self. I mean, this is a playoff team.
Yeah, they definitely have some talent on both sides of that ball. I don't see any glaring holes for them. I'm sure that they'll come into place. But I think that they could use maybe another backup running back, somebody to spell Nick Chubb, maybe even tight end, somebody behind David Njoku.
Wait. They have a Mackey Award winner behind Njoku. Who Harrison Bryant is their backup tight end.
Yeah, our lads has them listed as the third on that depth chart.
Oof, rude.
They drafted really well in the 2023 NFL draft. There's not a lot of glaring holes. It's just like you alluded to, it's the Browns. And I can't get on board with them winning, a high number of games when they haven't shown it. So I'll take the under.
I should mention, they did take Cedric Tillman, D tackle. You want to say that for me? Psyche Ika out of Baylor, Dwan Jones, another edge rusher out of Missouri, Isaiah McGuire. I mean, they addressed a lot of the primary needs. Obviously, that's in the 3rd and 4th round, so you're not exactly counting on them for production this year. Did take corner out of Northwestern, Cameron Mitchell, as well as center out of Ohio State, Luke Weipler. But they did address a lot of those needs. They just didn't have that high pick. Obviously, part of that's because of Elijah Moore, but I do like the Cedric Tillman pick for them, at least for the long term. Again, nobody wants to say it, but these Browns could make some noise. They could make some serious noise.
Yeah, I mean, I know we have one team left, but you can't have 4 teams in a division that are going to be at the top, right? So somebody's got to be the punching bag. It's just a matter of who that's going to be.
Kinda. I mean, theoretically, they can all make the playoffs. Now, if we look at these other divisions, you're like, who else is missing the playoffs if that happens? But theoretically, it's possible.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. So let's move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So Pittsburgh over under set at 8.5 on DraftKings and most sites. Pre-draft, I had them needing O-line and corner. Post-draft, I wrote this emoji because I don't know. I mean, you could say middle linebacker, interior, like a middle linebacker because of the loss of Shazier. Obviously, that was a couple years back, but they haven't really addressed that successfully since. Maybe some D-line depth, but as far as like current needs, again, I'm just the emoji of I don't know. Getting Broderick Jones there in the 1st and Joey Porter in the 2nd. Obviously, they address those needs, and I think those guys will be starters week 1. O-line is like for the first time, and I don't know how long. This is a respectable O-line, and Mike Clay's got him at 16. I think that with some experience and Broderick Jones being what we think he can be at the NFL level, that this O-line is on the upswing and could be even better. But this, for the first time in a very long time, it shouldn't be a weakness of theirs. And then D-line obviously is an extreme strength, led by TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. And then there's the little factor here of their strength of schedule. It's the 8th easiest. It's 8th. So, they benefit from, I guess it was a 3rd place schedule, right? They got 3rd and the Browns got last. Is that correct?
I don't have that in front of me.
So that's another thing here is, a lot of people aren't respecting the Steelers and the Browns, but they both won. I want to pull it up here in a second. They both won 7 for the Browns and 9 for the Steelers. The Mike Tomlin hasn't had a losing season in his entire coaching career. The Browns won 7 games, mostly on the back of Jacoby Brissett, partially on Deshaun Watson. I believe he went 3-3 in those 6 games. So the Steelers actually are getting the 3rd place schedule here, not 4th place, but it ends up, at least per Warren Sharp over at Sharp Football, being the 8th easiest schedule. I looked through it, and there's every reason to believe that they're going to win a lot of football games. So it's not going to be like this in every division, but once again, this is another team that could win a lot of football games. So obviously, I'm clearly leaning in a direction, but Steelers 8 over under at 8.5. What you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna hit that over. I mean, obviously, they start the season with the 49ers, Browns, Raiders, Texans, and Ravens before their bye week on October 15th. And they go to Los Angeles for a game against the Rams, Jags, Titans, Packers, Browns, Bengals, Cardinals. And then their last 5, Patriots, Colts, Bengals, Seahawks, and Ravens. So it's a competitive division. I'm not saying that it's not. So you kind of have to factor that in, but along the way, you get a game against the Raiders, against the Texans, uh, Rams, who obviously looked pretty pretty poor last year. You also get the Texans, Packers, Cardinals, Patriots, Colts. They're all teams that were drafting pretty high in the NFL draft a month ago. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities that they're gonna win some games here.
Yeah,
Um,
it's tough, right? Because I mean, the idea that somebody's gonna fail, right? Something's gonna happen, injuries, what have you. But like when you look at, obviously everybody knows the AFC is way stronger than the NFC. Um, you've got your division winners, but whoever doesn't win between Buffalo, Miami, and the Jets, obviously is going to be one of the top competitors um, for a wild card. That may be two competitors, and that just assumes the Patriots aren't good enough to be in that conversation. Somebody's going to win the AFC South. Most people would think Jacksonville. Maybe those other teams aren't quite good enough to make the playoffs. But then you've got the AFC West, where okay, the Super Bowl champs, we assume they win the division again. What about the Chargers? Are the Chargers going to make it? And then just can Sean Payton turn around the Broncos, or are the Raiders a playoff contender? So it's just you've got at least with the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Jets, you've got that's three wild cards right there that you think are going to happen. One of those teams could obviously falter. I think the Dolphins are going to be pretty good this year, but if Tua is unable to stay healthy, then we could be looking at they could be looking at an unfortunate situation there. So, I mean, NFL's the NFL and things happen, but you tell me which one of these teams isn't making the playoffs. I can't confidently say it. I guess the conventional wisdom would be Bengals, Ravens make it, and Steelers, Browns don't. But I think Steelers and Browns, without something terrible happening, Steelers and Browns, I think, are going to be right there in it.
Yeah, I think they can be in it. I just think that they need help getting in. So I don't think they're going to be able to win it on their own. I think it's probably going to come down to a team that's it's going to be out of their control. So it's going to be between two other teams, and if one of them loses, then they're in. I just don't see. I mean, looking at this roster and their depth chart, I just don't see a lot of explosive talent. I guess is a
star
good way to
power.
put it.
Star power.
Yeah.
You got TJ Watt, maybe Minka Fitzpatrick. Kenny Pickett's obviously a big story here. I mean, he's not, star power does not apply to him, but it could. I don't think either one of us are expecting him to be the next great thing in the NFL, but as a second year quarterback with pretty solid wide receiving core, not to mention a good pass catching tight end there. He certainly could take that next step, and it wouldn't be the first time that a second year quarterback has taken a big step that was maybe unexpected, and I mean, unless he flat out falls on his face, like, this team is going to win 8-9 games, if not more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at their roster, and I think that they could probably look at a wide receiver in 2024, whether that's in the draft or free agency. You mentioned their offensive line; it looks solid.
Let's talk about wide receiver.
Yeah, well, I think it's crazy that we're talking about their offensive line as solid when it's ranked 16th, and we're talking about, hey, that their offensive line has gotten better. That just kind of goes to show what their offensive line has looked like.
It was just the worst for the longest time. They were bottom five. But let's talk about wide receiver real quick, because you've got second year, George Pickens. Some people are split on him, but obviously he showed he at least belongs in the NFL. He made some highlight reel catches last year. Imagine he will develop and have a better year this year. And then Deontay Johnson's a very good wide receiver in the NFL. Whether you think he's a top 10 or top 30, he's still he's commanded a very large number of targets over the years. Hard to tell exactly if that's because of the style of the offense, if Ben Roethlisberger's arm was gone and was unable to throw down the field. But those two wide receivers, I mean, that's a pretty strong 1-2 in my mind. Calvin Austin is a guy they drafted a couple years back that I think they've got some hope for. And then I believe they made a cheap trade for Allen Robinson. So, I mean, he'll be there. He should be their third wide receiver. Obviously, he didn't show much last year, but as a 3, I don't think that's certainly not a downgrade. So just want to give a little bit of respect to the wide receiving core. Could they use a little bit of help? Yeah. I don't really expect them to take one there like in the first round next year unless one of the top guys moves on.
No, I mean, I think it's a day 2 pick, but I think that they need some youth in there and something to, kind of fill up some of those backup spots. Because I mean, looking at the their backups, it's Miles Boykin, Calvin Austin, and Cody White, Anthony Miller, some of those guys. So it's not like they have a ton of talent at that position.
Yeah, nothing proven beyond the top 3 for sure.
Right. So moving on defense, obviously you have T.J. Watt, Keanu Benton now at nose, Joey Porter at corner. I love their defense. I know you mentioned inside linebacker. I think that's maybe somewhere where they can really look at early in 2024. There's a couple guys on the on our website at NFLDraftLounge.com that we've already profiled at linebacker that I think would be perfect fits there. Maybe somebody like Jeremiah Trotter Jr. or Tommy Eichenberg.
Could see it definitely. That'd be my lean if I made a mock today.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to talk about glaring holes, I think that's it. I think that I know that they just addressed it, but I think that they could go back to corner. You have Patrick Peterson in the nickelback position. I think that they could, try to find somebody that can play nickel for them. It's out of these 4 teams in the AFC North, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are the ones with maybe the most glaring needs.
The most glaring needs or the weakest roster? Because I think we both just agreed they don't have very many glaring needs. Maybe inside linebacker. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, you can pick apart their depth chart, right? I just did it with wide receiver, maybe some depth at offensive line.
Got a few spots where they're not as talented, as some of the other teams in the division, but I wouldn't say any holes, right? But
linebacker, nickelback. I think that maybe they could look at another pass rusher, somebody opposite of T.J. Watt that can play there for, and really take some pressure off of them, kind of like what we saw the Raiders do with Max Crosby. It's like I said, I think that you can kind of pick it apart and find some holes for them and some spots where they should focus on in the off season. And but it's also a team that I think can go the complete opposite way and win 10 or 11 games. I'm not going to bet on it, but
but I would take it over on 8.5
against them either.
I would absolutely take the over on 8.5 though. And it's a better team than it was last year, and they won 9 games, right? So it's not always that simple.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know that it's a better team. I mean, you can say that about every team after the NFL draft and about after the offseason. I think it's more about how they're going to compete. And I don't know if I'd be willing to bet on them over 8.5 at this point. Obviously, they have a really easy schedule. We've already alluded to that. But it's also a team that I can see go either way.
Yeah, I'm not willing to stick my neck out too far here and say they're going to win the division or anything. But if they're in the thick of it there, week 16, 17, I could, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. All right, I think that's gonna do it for the AFC North. We actually got to show in on time. Uh, I'm Brian Lamb. You can find me on Twitter at Brian Lamb _ISN. I write for NFLDraftLounge.com, where you can read all of our 2024 content. And tell them where you're at, Sean.
Just at Sean Balzer, and find everything over there on NFL Draft Lounge.
All right. I think next week we'll probably go to the AFC East and break those teams down and continue our off-season preview.
Another strong division.
Another strong. Sean, somebody's got to lose. Yeah, it'll be tough. Yeah,
we're gonna have to end all this with actual projections, just to get that on the record, so that I can't say everybody's going over.
We're gonna get to like the AFC South and no 2 wins, 1 win, 3 wins, 4 wins. Yeah, that'll be the division.
Yeah, the Texans. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Till then, we'll catch you next time, and take care.